All right, Grayscale Investments ratcheting up the pressure after its legal victory against the Securities and Exchange Commission exactly 1 week ago. In a letter sent to the SEC yesterday, Grayscale urged the regulatory body to reconsider its application to turn its Bitcoin trust into a spot ETF. Is a spot Bitcoin ETF going to happen this year? I mean, there's a Hunger Games going on with a whole bunch of different fund companies. We may get some answers when SEC Chairman Gary Gensler testifies in front of lawmakers next week. But until then, here to break it all down and maybe give us a sense of whether it could happen is Pompliano Investments' Anthony Pompliano in studio in a Fox Business exclusive. Great to have you here in person.
Thanks so much for having me.
Finally, you're not in a TV box hidden away. I'm glad you're here. First of all, what do you make of Grayscale's latest win? And then the letter that was sent yesterday, is the pile on really happening?
Yeah. The great part about America is when there's disagreements between market participants and regulators, they go to court, they lay out their arguments. These are high-priced lawyers on both sides that do the best they can to convince a judge who's right. And the judge came down and they sided with Grayscale in this situation. Now what the SEC has to decide is, are they going to allow this conversion? But that's not the only part that they actually have to evaluate. They also have to look at the fact that you have other ETF applications that are out there. And so it's kind of this great race. Do we get the GBTC conversion first, or do we get ETF applications? I tend to think that we don't want to have a financial market where regulators are playing referee in the sense of they get to choose winners and losers. Instead, what we want is we want regulators to create fair markets. And so from my personal perspective, the best thing to do would be just approve them all at once. Say, GBTC, you can convert BlackRock, ARK, the other filers.
Van Eck.
Everyone gets to go. 1, 2, 3, go. Whoever gets the assets gets the assets. Because part of what we've seen in prior ETF applications that have been approved, whoever gets out there first, they get the assets.
Yeah, Fidelity. I mean, what is more basic and accepted in the world than Fidelity? They're applying Wisdom Tree, Bitwise, of course, BlackRock, which everybody got geeked up about. And that's when the price of Bitcoin spiked back above 30,000. Right now, it's around 25,000 and change. Why do you think that is?
Look, Bitcoin is a macro asset, and what I think we're really watching here is it's a highly illiquid asset. So about 70% of all Bitcoin that's in circulation is being held by people who over the last year have not sold.
Right.
And the reason why that's so important is the price has gone up, it's gone down, it's gone back up. They're not selling. And so ultimately what we're watching is, I think, the same setup that we saw in 2020. Going into 2020, there was this kind of inverted yield curve. There were CEOs leaving their jobs. It looked like we were heading towards a recessionary period. COVID happens and we get tons of money printed. But that happened to coincide exactly with the Bitcoin halving. When that occurred, you had a demand shock, supply shock, price goes up hundreds of %. I think that we're watching that exact same thing play out here. ETF application will be the demand shock. The supply shock is coming with the halving, and we should go up hundreds of % again.
This is a $1 trillion+ market cap now. Investors are in it. Some like it. And for the SEC to dig in its heels at this point beyond what their job is to do, and that is protect the investor, starts to look a little strange. But there are some legal minds out there, and I want your opinion on this, who actually are speculating that simply to make their case against a spot Bitcoin ETF, that the SEC would possibly roll back its green lighting of the Bitcoin futures opportunities that they have already put out there. Can you put the toothpaste back in the tube on BITO and BIDI? I mean, these futures trading operations that you could actually participate in now.
He who makes the rules can change the rules. And so they definitely could do it. I don't think it's likely, though. I do tend to think that there's a lot of speculation around this stuff. I do believe we will get ETF applications approved before the end of this year. We got about 100 days or so left to go. BlackRock knocking at the door, Fidelity, et cetera, I think really helps. But another key piece of this, and I think people kind of are so focused on the ETF application that they're not looking at the macro impact. And one of the things that recently came out is Bernstein came out with this brand new kind of prediction that this stablecoin market, these are just dollars on blockchain, is going to be about a $3 trillion market cap. Now, the reason why that's important is it's $125 billion today. So they're predicting just dollars alone will go from $125 billion to $3 trillion. If that happens, Bitcoin and the rest of the cryptocurrency market will likely be $10+ trillion. We're talking about a market that maybe is just over $1 trillion today. And so these are huge upside numbers.
There are some who remember what happened to Terra and Luna, and those were so-called stable coins, which fell, they broke the buck or whatever. They fell below $1. So to just say these are simply $1 equals a coin.
Correct.
Is a little
So that's where I think really people have to pay attention to what are the regulated ones, right? And so what we're seeing now is we're seeing a lot of people. Remember, J.P. Morgan came out with JPM coin a while ago, and so that was a American bank,
and some of them are
banks.
backed by U.S. Treasuries.
Correct.
So that's fair enough. I do want to get you on Coinbase. It's up 119% year to date. It's been an absolute brilliant performer. It's getting a lot of love because it's sort of the favored, surveillance sharing partner with many of these ETFs that are filing to do a spot Bitcoin. Of course, they have to work with the NASDAQ specifically. But what do you make of Bitcoin's prospects here? They're looking quite stable, to use the term stable.
So we've been an investor in Coinbase for a long time, from the private markets all the way through the IPO. And one of the things that business has always been able to hang its hat on is it was the leader in the regulated market of the American financial system. And so when you wanted to look at Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, Coinbase was that regulated leader. And I think they've continued to hold that position. Now what you're starting to see is not only are they able to serve retail investors, right? I think they've got 80 to 100 million users, whatever the number is today. But now they're also introducing things like lending to institutions. And so creating more financial services around these assets. And so ultimately, it's a business that if this industry works, it appears Coinbase will be one of the big infrastructure winners. And I think that's why a lot of investors are attracted to it.
Pomp, it's good to see you in person in a tie and a suit and the American flag. You served for 6 years in the Army. Our thanks to you for your service and for coming here to talk to our viewers.
I'm happy to be here. I appreciate the invite. We'll do it again soon.
Anytime.